Freeze non-essential immigration.
On day one, yes. 2 years later, no.
Right, what does that mean?
That means 2 years later, I want immigration down to zero.
Oh, I see. Right, so you're
on day one, yes, because we've got
you want net zero. Is it what you call net zero immigration?
No, I want minus.
Right. Okay.
I want the population of the country to shrink.
Okay.
I want less immigrants living here.
Right.
So on day.
So you want to stop immigration completely on day one?
No.
Which means but let immigration carry on. You can't stop immigration, can you? Yeah.
On day one, I want to heavily reduce immigration.
Right.
But we need to give businesses in this country a couple of years to sort themselves out and start training up people and work out how they're going to do what they're going to do. A lot of them need to mechanise and use technology.
Yeah.
But we've got to give them a couple of years. So they're the essential workers. We have to give a bit of a leeway. But overnight, half it, I don't know. But most of it ends on day one. But then we give them a couple of years. But during this time as well, we need to start saying to people living in this country, time to go home. You've been here 5 years now, and it's time to go home. And we start asking people to go home.
Nigel Farage, in one of the debates, he was actually quoting the numbers, which were quite startling. He said since Tony Blair since Tony Blair came to power, we've had 10 million immigrants into the country. And I think under Labour, under the Tories, it's something like, is it 7 million or something ridiculous?
It's horrendous figures.
I mean, these are massive numbers. These are population changing numbers. Yeah. 10 million people in a country that has a population of 60 million is massive, which I hadn't really realised before. His next immigration one is to take immigrants in small boats back to France.
Yeah, that could be done in a fortnight. That could be ended in a fortnight if we had a government with a backbone.
Yeah. Bar student dependence. Apparently what we're finding out now is that a lot of students who come over
are bringing up to 8 people with them.
Yes, they can bring their family with them basically. Yeah. And then once they're here, they're here.
They're here, yeah. And they're all working. They're all going to the NHS.
Yeah.
And it's like the visas, the student visas became the latest scam for mass immigration.
Really?
So we need to halve the amount of universities we've got in this country. Half of them need to go bankrupt and go.
Right.
And then we'll be left with the good ones. At the moment, we've got universities who only advertise abroad because they know those people will come. They're not going to attend the classes, so we don't have to worry about any of that. We get their money off them, and then they disappear. It's a funding stream for universities that the taxpayer has to pick up for as long as they're here.
But the average man on the street thinks that doesn't happen. If you tell them that, they'll say, oh, no, there must be controls in place to stop that happening. But there aren't any, are there?
No. Why does a student need to bring 8 family members with them? Crazy.
And I think that's part of the problem, that the left or the liberals or the progressives, they don't believe it when they're told about these things and they say people come over, they bring 8 dependents, they don't go to lectures and they disappear and they're gone. They think, oh no, that can't happen because we have an immigration service, they get on them or whatever. But there's none of that happening, is there? There's no control over it.
There's no controls, but most of those lefties don't care. Because those people are here now, and that's nice for them, and I'm a nice person. Their country's not very nice, at least they're here now and safe.
Yeah.
And it means I get cheap Uber, and I get cheap Deliveroo, and I've got a nanny. My kid's got a nanny now, only paying £4.50 an hour. So they get benefits out of it as well.
Yeah.
Our immigration system has become a type of modern slavery.
Yeah,
it really has.
That's a good point.
We rip these people away from their countries, their ancestral homelands, their families, their relatives. We get them here. We then, to a certain extent, abuse them. We don't pay them what they're worth. The general population don't want them here. And the only people who want them here are the people who are getting benefits out of them, which are large corporates or businesses who are undercutting local wages, and people who are getting cheap coffee and cheap takeaways and stuff like that. It's kept the prices down for everybody. So, and we talked about the benefit system. So an average British person now can't afford to get a crap job because benefits pay more than that. But if that crap job paid twice as much because there was no cheap labour in the country, then they don't have to sit on benefits, do they?
Yeah. So you think these immigrants are taking these cheap jobs?
They're not taking these
Not
cheap
taking
jobs.
them.
They're creating these cheap jobs.
Right.
If their presence wasn't here, we wouldn't have people on push bikes delivering takeaways all over the country. Because you wouldn't want to pay £15 to get your takeaway delivered to you.
Yeah.
But you'll pay a couple of quid because they're doing it illegally and they're not paying tax, and a couple of quid for them because they send someone home and so they're creating a low wage economy in this country, and it's been happening for decades.
Yeah, I think this is what's called zero contract work, isn't it, effectively, where they're not paid an hourly rate, these guys. You know, the guys that do the Deliveroo and all that sort of stuff.
Most of them are classed as self-employed.
Right.
So they're just self-employed. Again, that's a loophole. I'm for flexibility in the work market. So, 0-hour contracts can be good sometimes, and I've used them in the past. But when you're using these things, and it's obvious you're doing it so those individuals who work for you don't get extra benefits, that needs clamping down on, because our forefathers fought for employment rights for us, and I don't want to see us going back to stages where you're not getting holiday pay, you're not getting, all these things, even though you're working for that company full time and doing 16 hours a day. Why are we allowing it? That kind of bank isn't really self-employed, doesn't have a choice. So something needs clamping down on. So only businesses were making money out of this.
And immediate access to benefits for immigrants, I'm guessing.
Oh, absolutely. So what we need to do is, no one born in this country should be able to claim benefits, I reckon. Even if you've worked here 10 years.
No one not born in this country
Yes.
should be able to claim. Yeah.
I don't think you should be able to get social housing if you weren't born in this country.
Yeah.
I don't think you should be able to get some NHS services if you weren't born in this country. I would also like to see an increase in tax for people who weren't born in this country. 1 or 2 pence on top of the national rate of income tax.
Well, this is what he's saying. Employer immigration tax, 20% NI for foreign workers. So if you have a foreign worker working for you, you've got to pay 20% national insurance rather than 10% national insurance. That's not on the immigrant, that's on the employer.
Yeah, different way of doing it, and so I agree with that.
That's to discourage.
It's, again, they're doing it to discourage employers, but they'll be in government. So just stop people coming here, and you won't need to discourage employers.
Yeah.
Because in itself, that won't stop the pull factor, because the business is having to fork out. It will just encourage more businesses then to pay cash in hand.
Yeah.
So that in itself sounds good, but it doesn't stop the problem. The government can stop the problem with the border force. That's how we stop it, by deporting people.
But you broadly agree with most of those policies.
Did you like that video? I think you did. Hit the bell, give it a big thumbs up, comment, and don't forget I'm standing for election in Oldham East and Saddleworth. So please share this video, speak to your family and friends if you live in Greater Manchester, and if you live in Oldham East and Saddleworth, make sure you vote for me. Catch you soon.